Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Let's Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check out
yes.
all our social media platforms. Let's Up, craft your own footprints.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Amacha amalungi gwenna atukereddeko eyo nayo gy'osinzira okubanga otulaba. Nze Mukose Arnold Anthony lunaku lwa kubiri ennaku zitambulidde ddala nno mu mwezi ogw'omwenda twakalyako ennaku 5 era nga kwaketa dakiika 5 ku ssaawa 2 z'enkya ya leero nga mbagambye ennaku lwa kubiri eno United Drive nga nze ndi wano leero mu styling okubanga mbatambuza paka gyetunaawunzikira ku ssaawa 4 n'omugenyi waffe omukulu Adolf Akuguzibwe. Ono nno mukugu mu nsonga z'ebyokulonda, ono mukugu mu nsonga ez'eddembe ly'obuntu, mu lawyer oba constitutional lawyer oba lawyer ku nsonga za ssemateeka. Ono nno mulwanyizi wa ddembe, so tujja kwakutogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo naddala okuvuunika gavumenti mu mawanga ag'enjawulo kw'oteeka n'ensonga ey'okuba nti oba oliawo ebyokwerinda bigenda bisebengerera mu ggwanga Uganda kwa buli kyewabaawo bomb threat. Tutunulire n'okutambula kwa Bobi Wine n'embeera y'ebyobufuzi eri mu maaso mu ggwanga Uganda. Zonna ensonga tujja kuba tuzitunulira era nga tujja kuba tulaba ki ekirina okukolebwa, bino bivudde ku ki, era ensi Uganda n'olukalu lw'omundugavu Africa luwo lulagawa. Byonna tujja kuba tubitunulira n'omukulu Adolf Akuguzibwe bw'anaaba nga atwegasseeko. Naye munzikirize mu mbeera eyo nsooke mbatuuseeko amawulire agamu ku ago agatambudde oba agakoze amawulire mu ggwanga Uganda. Tujja kusookera ku kibiina kiri ku oluvuganya ekya Forum for Democratic Change oba giyite FDC. Kino ng'ekitebe kyabwe kiina Janankumbi. Bano nno bali mu katuubagiro ng'azaana w'enkufu nga olw'okuba nti emiviyo oba abaloga akyali waggulu ku kalina abalengera olw'okuba nti emiviyo mu kibiina kino tegikkakkana buli lunaku wabaawo ensonga endala ebolyawo erabika oba ewulirwa. Bano nno bagamba nti waliwo delegates conferences ziri bbiri eya chairman ebiriggwa neya secretary general naye wetwatukira ku Monday nga bawandiika ebbaluwa kuba Birigwa yali asabye budget yali asabye sente secretary general ng'amusaba nti oba oli awo tuweeyo essente eziwera ddala obukadde ezisoba mu bukadde 6 okusobola okuteeka delegates conference eno extraordinary. Naye secretary general yamuzeemu n'amukootinga obwabiro obw'enjawulo awo n'amulaga n'awunzika amugamba nti first of all teri mateeka ate ne ssente z'osaba teziriiwo. Naye bano nno bakombye kwebaza eriibwa ne bagamba nti ntayi ogunywanga n'oguteeka n'oguteesa tetujja kukkiriza kulaba nti tujjogebwa tujja genda mu maaso ntulira delegates conference eno bakitagisa kwesonda tujja kwesonda. Kale bagamba tunaabiwulira tatya kudduukira nduulu ensonga bwetyo bweri mu kibiina kya FDC. Naye bano balangiridde nti n'okulonda ebifo oba obukulembeze obwabo abaneetaba mu delegates conference eya Nathan Nandala Mafabi James ono nga secretary general nakwo bakulangiridde era nga abantu baddembe oba members baddembe ogenda okukimayo empapula ku kitebe oba ku offices za kibiina kino ez'enjawulo mu ggwanga lyonna Uganda. Naye bano kiteeberezebwa nti abantu abamu bafunye ebifo ku mitende gya wansi nga bakubiza essimu ne bagamba nti jangu tukwade ekifo kino kikkirize gamba nti twakulonze. So waliwo abantu ab'enjawulo abavuddeyo abamu nga bagamba nti tetwagala bifo byabwe mitulonze naye tujja biwulira. N'ekirala waliwo munnamawulire wa Kaboozi bamuyita Judy Bukenya. Ono nno munnamawulire Judy Bukenya ono ng'akola n'Akaboozi ku 2 ne Radio 1. Ono kigambibwa nti yakwatibbwa ku biragiro bya speaker Anita Amongi Mbu ono current affairs reporter naye nga yatachita ku parliament. Ono nno nti alina dozia oba alina reporter gy'abadde agezaako okukola oba gy'abadde akola eno nga eyanika obuziina eyanika amankwetu eyanika ebitatambula bulungi mu office ya speaker ne speaker ng'omuntu naye ono yabuzibbwawo naye nga ekiteeberezebwa nti Mbu speaker yalagidde akwatibwe nga baagala kumanya byawandiika abijjawa. Sono ebitongole ebiwanyizi bannamawulire eddembe y'abannamawulire ebyenjawulo ne bannamawulire ab'enjawulo bavuddeyo ku mikutu egy'enjawulo nga oba oli awo nga nabo balaga butali mativu bwabwe nga bagamba nti kino ekikolebwa tekimenya amateeka era speaker Amongi nga bwali public officer akkirize nti abantu bajja mutakula ku mugongo naddala ng'akola ebyo ebitasaana oba ng'akola ebyo bo abali b'omusolo kye balowooza nti oba kwejaajata na kwejaajamya na kujaajamya nsembi wa musolo. So bano bagamba nti speaker bw'obanga wakkiriza okuzina amazina g'enkima kkiriza emikira gikukooneko era nga bo abannamawulire bagamba nti beetegefu okwanika buli munnabyabufuzi buli ali mu ofisi y'omuwi w'omusolo yenna kasabanga oba oli awo engeri gy'otambuzaamu emirimu gyo oba oli awo tekwatagana n'ebyo bakusuubiramu. Ate era ne basaba nti mukimanye nti public officer taba na kyama naddala bwe kiba nga kyekussa ku ssente y'omuwi w'omusolo. Oli waddembe okuba n'ekyama kyo ng'omuntu naye ate bw'obeera mu office ng'osaasaanya era ng'ofuna omusolo n'omusaala ku ssente y'omuwi w'omusolo bo bannansi bagamba nti bajja kulima empindi ku mugongo okutuusa nga ensonga eyo nayo etuuse. So ebyo bya muganda waffe Judy Bukenya owa Kaboozi ku 2 tukusabira okyemanye ojja kuvaayo naye nga naffe tuvumirira oba oli awo bannabyabufuzi abagufudde omugano okwesa ofisi zammwe okusobola okutiisatiisa bannamawulire n'okulaba nga oba oli awo mubajja ku mulamwa n'okulemerera okukola emirimu gyabwe. Bwe tuvaako awo mu Gaboni eyakuliramu okuwamba n'okuvuunika gavumenti ya Ali Bongo ono nga ye Bryce Ngwema yalayiriziddwa akawungezi k'eggulo era ku mukolo ogwabaddeko abakungu ab'enjawulo ne bannansi nga bajaganya n'okujaguza ng'akimeze okwenjala nga bagamba nti bafunye omukulembeze omupya, bafunye omukulembeze abategeera era ono yabasuubiza naye yabagambye nti okusinziira ku bitonotono agamba nti obukulembeze bujja kuba bwakaseera buseera bajja kutegeka okulonda okw'abantu beesalirewo naye nga bo bannansi bagamba nti oba oliawo bafunye omukulembeze kansabe ali mu byuma atuweeyo eddoboozi lye oba abawe process eno y'okulayira briefly mulabe ebimu ku byabaddeyo oba n'ebyo byayogeddwa briefly then tukomewo.
Réalisation de l'unité nationale. Je le jure.
L'on serait à même cap.
Ono nno yabasuubiza obumu oba giyite unity era n'agamba nti obukulembeze bwe bujja kubanga kugatta abantu n'okulaba nga democracy addamu awukala mu ggwanga eryo. Bwe tuvaako awo tugendeko mu summit eya climate oba ey'obutonde bw'ensi. President Ruto, president wa Tanzania, yavuddeyo n'agamba nti Africa newankubadde y'emu ku nsi ezitannavaayo nnyo okuba nti bye zikola biwono n'obutonde bw'ensi naye ate ke kaseera twegatte okusobola okulaba nga tulwanyisa obutonde bw'ensi obulabikanga obuzze okusaanyaawo ensi eno Africa n'okusaanyaayo ensi yonna era ng'agamba nti nga Africa bo beetegefu okulaba nga oba oliawo bakola ebyo ebisaanidde oba ebigwanidde okusobola okulaba nga bakuuma obutonde bw'ensi nti kubanga bwe bataaveeyo mu kaseera kano oba oliawo ensi yonna nga bwe tuli ku bunkenke tuyinza okuba nga tufuna obuzibu obutali bulungi. Ono nno magenda mu summit eno yagendedde mu mmotoka ey'amasannyalaze kirongo yakikoze ng'agezaako okulaga nti bo beetegefu okulwanyisa okukuuma obutonde bw'ensi nga bakendeeza omukka ogufuluma ogw'obulabe oguyinza okuba nga guyinza ogwona obulamu bwaffe, ogwona empewo, ogwonoona ebirime, ogwona environment obaawo ebitundu gye tubeera. Ruto yasabye amawanga amalala gonna okwekwata awamu ekitole okulwanyisa n'okukuuma obutonde bw'ensi era nga bw'owulira bwanyula ku nsonga eno mu summit eno egenda mu maaso.
A 1/3 reduction in agricultural productivity due to climate change. A stark reminder of the urgent need for adaptation. Yet, much of the world is just waking up to the merits of restorative agriculture, a practice that already resonates with African farming practices. We will not shy away from the difficult conversations and uncomfortable realities that must be addressed to achieve meaningful change. Policy, regulations, taxation, trade, and climate justice will all be scrutinized. Africa holds the key to decarbonizing the global economy, whether it is industrialization, whether it's manufacturing. We are not just a continent rich in resources. We are a powerhouse of untapped potential, eager to engage and fairly compete in the global marketplace.
Oyo ye President William Ruto ng'agezaako okutaanya ensonga y'okuuma obutonde bw'ensi. Onagamba nti bino bye tukola tubikole nga tumanya nti obutonde bw'ensi butukwatako ddala mu mbeera zonna. Kale bwe tuvaako awo bannakibiina kya National Unity Platform bakyagenda mu maaso otulaga bitundu eby'enjawulo mu ggwanga Uganda bano nga balangirira omwezi oguwedde nti bagenda tambula ebitundu eby'enjawulo mu ggwanga era nga wiiki ewedde bali mu bitundu by'obugwanjuba bwa Uganda oba just Western Uganda nga mwe muli Ankole ne Toro era nga bano batalaga ebitundu ebyenjawulo era nga gyonna gye bayise babadde bafuna reception oba okwanirizibwa okulungi bano nga bakulembeddwamu principal waabwe Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu bangi gwe bamanyi nga Bobi Wine bano batalaga n'okulaba nga bakunga bannakibiina okusobola okulaba nga babeegattako sinakindi n'okubawa message ey'okubazaamu amaanyi oba ey'okwenunula naye akawungezi k'eggulo yabadde mu bitundu by'e Busoga Mayuge Mayuge nno nze gye nva ng'omuntu nva Mayuge district naye kale yabaddeko ewaffe Mayuge bano ne bamwaniriza ne bamuwa reception ennungi bano bamukwasiza enkasi ng'akabonero akalaga nti oba oli awo ke kaseera okwate eggwanga Uganda ovuge enkasi ovuge eryato lino ku nnyanja bano n'abasuubiza n'abagamba nti nga mumpadde enkasi bwe nkomawo ngenda kubaleetera nnyanja n'okugoba abasirikale oba okulagira amagye yabagambye nti bwakoma ajja kumanga president w'eggwanga Uganda era alagira amagye g'eggwanga gava ku nnyanja bannansi basobole okweyagala n'okulya ku Sabulenya oba n'okulya ku byennyanja n'okuvuba nga beeyagalidde ku nnyanja yaabwe awatali kukuba ku nsolobotto oba oliawo awatali kutewaanyizibwa kwonna naye era ono yagambye nti ensonga lwaki basobodde okuba laalize zino zonna nga ababyokola tebabateganya nti kubanga balina omusango baateekayo mu ICC oba mu kooti y'ensi yonna International Criminal Court nga bavunaana president w'eggwanga Uganda General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni retired kwoteeka ne mutabani we General Mukose Arnold Anthony era nga bagamba nti singa wabaawo omuntu yenna munamagye yenna agezaako kubateteganya mu mbeera gye balimu oba oliawo ajja kuba bawabujulizi mu egyo emisango gye bavunaana mu kooti eno era yensonga lwaki nti babadde bafunye okutambula okulungi yonna gye batambulidde awatali buzibu bwonna ono nno yabasabye nti ke kaseera benyigiremu oba oliawo bakozese eddoboozi eryawamu okusobola okulaba nga bejjako bo bebayita bannakyemalira ne famire ye nti ke kaseera bannansi bekwatiremu nti ye ekimututte si kubasaba bululu naye okubategeeza nti ye mukulembeze yawangula ne bamubba bubbi naye nga ke kaseera banunula obuwanguzi bwabwe nga bw'omulya bwanyonyola mu ddoboozi lye mwennyini katumuwulire.
Museveni twamututane mutabani we mu International Criminal Court era twamugambye nti gwe Museveni kati tukomawo Uganda tetulina musango tugenda yonna gye tugenda tukulinze otukube otutte kamera kweziri ojja kuba tuwa evidence yatukutteko kubanga bano badictator bonna bana abazayi ba Mobutu babongo Bashiri ba Museveni abadictator bonna bali abazungu be babakozesa kati nze nagenda eri mu bazungu kubanza eri bubi ate bamanyi
kale yensonga ki ye agamba nga bwe muwulidde ensonga lwaki takwatibwako oba ensonga lwaki tanafuna kusoomoozebwa na byakwenda naye bano okusinziira kwa amyuka omwogezi w'amaka wa president ono omukulu Baraka Kirunda omulangira w'Ebusoga yagambye nti wabaddeyo ebifaananyi ne video ezayitinganye nga bali Mayuge nga bano bakutte emmotoka abawagizi ba NUP bawambye emmotoka ya ministry y'ebyobulamu ne batandika okutambulirako embonga nekigendererwa ekyokudrawing attention ya security bateteganye oba bakubemu tiya gasi bafune ekyokwekwasa so nga bagamba nti office ya president egamba nti atandise okukozesa obukodyo buno okusoomooza ababyokwerinda bateteganye oba oliawo afune attention naye bano omwogezi w'amagye omukulu Felix Kraije yabalabudde n'abagamba nti temufuddeyo kulamu bwammwe naye oba oliawo embeera y'ebyokwerinda egenda mu maaso temugifuddeeko n'obulamu bwammwe nti naddala mu biseera bino nga tuli mu mbeera ey'okuba nti obutujju bugenda bweyongera n'ebikolwa byabo omuli okutega bomu nti bo temufuddeyo naye nga byokwenda tebajja kuserikana makwade muyinza okuloza nti kiri political bo bagenda kuvaayo n'embeera yonna okusobola okulaba nga bantu mmwe oba oli awo muregulatingibwa obanga mulungamizibwa engeri gye mujja okutambuzaamu ensonga eno naddala mu mbeera eno nga embeera y'ebyokwerinda yo si nnungamu era si nnungi. Bwe tuvaako awo bannayuganda naddala bannakampala nammwe abakuŋŋaanira mu bifo eby'omujjuzo mulabuddwa oba mukubiriziddwa okulaba nga mwekenneenya era nga mwekengera buli mbeera yonna kino kiddiridde bomu ez'enjawulo okutegululwa oba okuzuulibwa nga tezinayabika mu bitundu ebyenjawulo mu Kampala. Twatandika ne bomu ku Lwomukaaga mu kibuga Kampala mu Nabukeera, poliisi yategula bomu yatutegeeza nti yategula bomu, ate ne ku Sunday ku Miracle Center Cathedral awerubaga ku chachi ya Pastor Kayanja nawo bategulawo bomu. Ate tukyali awo mu bitundu by'e Nateete nawo ne basinkanawo bomu bomu zebagamba nti zabadde bbiri era kakananga abantu ab'enjawulo bakwatibwa era nga bano bagaliddwa ku bigambibwa nti oba oli awo balina bye bamanyi n'akakwate ku zino bomu ezigenda zitegebwa mu bitundu eby'enjawulo era nga bano ku Lwesande bali banoonya abantu abalanga 5 abagambibwa nti baali emabega wa bomu era nga erunguja ennyumba emu yazindirwa ne waggyibwawo ebintu ebiteebeeza okuba nti zaali bomu nkolerere oba magezi maganda nga bwali ziyise naye bano bazisanga tezinakola bulabe era nga twebaza ab'ebyokwerinda abagezezaako okulaba nga oba oli awo embeera eno yonna bagikondensinga oba bagikontaininga nga tenatuusaako bulabe ku bantu bannayuganda. So mu mbeera eno tukubiriza bannansi naffe tubeere vigilant buli kye tukola era tubeere beegendereza nnyo kubanga embeera eno tekosa gwe naye ekosa eggwanga Uganda eteeka y'okwerinda ku bunkenke ebyenfuna tebalawo mulimu gwonna gutambula era ekanga era etiisa abantu abaze okunoonya abalize mu Uganda okuteekamu investment baba batya okujja muno olw'okuba nti oba oli awo ebyokwerinda byabwe biba tebinategeerekeka bulungi era biba tebinakakasibwa bulungi. Kale munzikirize mpumulemuko bwe nkomawo nja kuba neegatibwako omugenyi waffe omukulu Adolf Akuguzibwe then tulabe engeri gitambuzaamu ensonga. Tujja kuba tunuulira ensonga ez'enjawulo omuli ebyokwerinda omuli okuwamba n'okuvuunika gavumenti mawanga ag'enjawulo naddala mu bugwanjuba bwa Africa kwoteeka okutambulako Bobi Wine n'ebyokwerinda bino nga bitambula bwebiri kwoteeka emivuyo giri mu FDC because ono mukugu mu nsonga z'ebyokulonda. So ojja kuba tunuulira ensonga ez'enjawulo era nkusaba nti gwe nayina endowoozayo giteeke mu inbox giteeka awo mu kiwanja kyaffe ekya The Alternative Uganda oba Digitalk TV oba owa YouTube osobola okutegattako later on ng'eshow nemaze okuuploading ewa ku The Alternative Uganda nga tuwenda owoozayo ejja kuba etuuka bulungi nnyo eri omugenyi waffe. Nze Mukose Arnold Anthony okubanga ntuliddewo omukulu Rogers Twahabwe n'omumbeejja Bikobere Farida abateewulira bulungi naye nga tubasabira oba oli awo embeera yaabwe eterere bulungi. Ye omukulu Edgar Mafika Ruhanga ali ku mirimu emitongole ajja kuba akumawono ku Lwokuna. So kale mu mbeera eyo munzikirize mpumulemu katono nnyo nfune ku Lwendo Malombe nkomewo otandikiraawo ne programu yaffe n'omugenyi waffe nga twegaseeko.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Les Hub Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices and with neck deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Les Hub Stores on all our social media platforms. Les Hub, craft your own footprints.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings. Looking for a pair of shoes? Let's Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices and with neck deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Let's Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Let's Up, craft your own footprints.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Kale, mulabi waffe omulungi tukwaniriza nate mu kuleka mu kumuloko tekubadde kuwanvu oba kuwanvu okusinzira bw'oba olabye nze Mukose Arnold Anthony. Like I promised you, I promised to bring you Mr. Adolf Akuguzibwe, an expert in international politics, international current affairs, and more so, today we are looking at the global perspective on what's causing the coups, more so in Africa, and because it has become the order of the day in most West African countries that coups are becoming the phenomenon, are now the songs that are being sung by West Africans. Yet, as Africa, we thought we were accelerating and maybe developing democratically, but it's unfortunate that now democracy and the rule of law is being erased and replaced with maybe coups. But allow me, invite him, say hi, then we set off and he tells us where he has been hiding for all the years. Mr. Adolf, you're most welcome.
Thank you, my brother. For our listeners, my name is Akuguzibwe Adolf. And, well, I'm glad to be here again. It has been quite a while, but I thank God that I am back here. Yeah. I think just like you, the leave away from political debates or spaces of this kind has been deliberate, but also trying to understand at an individual, but also as an organization, what exactly is not right with my continent, but also in particular my country. So you'd notice in today's debate, unlike the debates we've had before, the context and an understanding of African problems from my individual, but also people I lead or people I work with, has quite changed. I think the last time I came here, you brought me here as an electoral process or election expert and advisor. At that time, I was working with SEDU. So from that time, I've invested a lot of my energies in understanding what exactly is wrong with my continent and what can we do different as a continent. So much of my energies have been invested in that direction. And I believe as an organization, but also as an individual, we are in a better position now to advise and have our continent move forward. So yes, sir. So
where are you these days?
Well, I'm still into practice again. I work with Mike Baingana, but also I'm doing consultancy on African politics, but also on African politics in relation to our relationship with our former colonies. So I've invested much of my energies and research in that direction. So I want, to some extent, qualify myself as a consultant in areas of African transformation.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. You've said that much of your energies have been invested in finding out what's wrong with Africa. Let's begin from there.
Yes.
What exactly is going wrong? Because we would expect at this time, in the 2023, democracies are advancing. Countries are having leaders after 10, 8, 2 terms. 10 years, 8 years, 2 terms. But now in Africa, we are replacing with coups. Without coups, we're in 60s, 70s, then between 70s and 80s, were liberation struggles and wars in civil wars. And now we thought we had advanced to democracy and elections. But again, we are going back. What could be the problem? What could be the cause of the problem?
I was going to ask you going back from where, but well, so that is the position that I think brings me back to the media. And like I earlier said, my major focus is going to be to the young people. What is our generation obligation? What is our job as a generation to contributing to the growth of the continent? As you may rightly be aware, and you may have heard that each generation has its own job to do.
Yes.
There was a job of our forefathers, the late Mwanga, the King of Buganda, the late Kabaliga, those who fought against colonialism, not to be colonized. So from that time, then we get the Obotes, the late President Obote, the Musas of DP, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Julius Nyereres, who then were fighting colonialism, because at that time now Africa was colonized. Then after you had the generation of the now President Museveni, who then were supposed to make sure that after Africa had then received what we would now call independence, were now to organize Africa to set off, to have independent economies, to have independent governments, independent military. So that was their job. So the question me and you have to ask ourselves, what is our role as a generation? And I was trying to explain to some of my friends that because we have invested a lot of our time in things that are not supposed to be of our generation, it sometimes explains why some of these leaders like President Museveni remain in power. Because I believe that they've not understood or trusted us much to believe that we can take up the mantle to direct this continent to where many of them had expected this continent to be. So, like it or not, the truth is at some point, in not so many years, this country is not going to be led by President Museveni. Similar to the current presidents in Nigeria, current presidents in South Africa, that generation at this time, rather that is in power this time, definitely they're not going to be in power. So the question all of us now, especially the young people, to ask ourselves is how ready are we to take up the mantle and face the challenges this continent is facing?
But
now,
yes.
As we may have understood, the truth is Africa has had several coups, and I understand out of the 486 coups in the entire world, I think Africa has contributed almost 214 of those coups. And quite a big figure they've been successful. I think over 106 of those coups in Africa have been successful. So you can look at more than 50% of the coups in the entire world have been in Africa. And so I have been running cults, just like the one you're running now, of saying, well, it is because of poor leadership that Africa has had all these coups. It's because of leaders who don't want to get out of power that Africa has had these coups. It is because of anger for power that people, do not want to rather that we're having these coups in Africa. So I had invested a lot of my energies and research in that area to understand what exactly is the African problem and how then can we get out of this problem. So just to give you a clear context of what exactly has happened in almost all these countries where these coups are, you may be aware that more than 70 or 80% of the coups in Africa have been in the former French colonies.
Yeah, true.
And so the question has always been, why in these colonies? Number two, when Africa, especially in the Sahel region, when Africa got its independence, or what now would be the African independence, did we honestly become independent? Because independence then means independence in terms of governance, independence in terms of the economy, independence in terms of security, of defense. So the question has always been, in which of these areas has Africa been
independent?
And we invested in tracking each of these countries that have had these independence, rather these coups. And not to go far, let's start with the most recent coups in Africa, especially in the Sahel region. You have Burkina Faso, you have Mali, you have Gabon, you have Niger, you have Sierra Leone. With the exception of Gabon, in fact, even with Gabon, okay, with the exception of Gabon, all these are West African countries. Yes. But all the countries I've mentioned, they are former French colonies. Let me give you a context of Niger. Niger is one of the biggest suppliers of uranium. Now, more than 90% of this uranium goes to France. Niger is 198th poorest country out of the 191 countries in the world. Niger's uranium contributes to 20% of power, that is electricity and gas, produced in France. France is the biggest net exporter of electricity and gas in the world. Niger's population, because we're saying Niger contributes 20% of the uranium, because France, unlike here in Uganda, where much of our power is hydro, in France it's different. In France, much of their power is nuclear power, which is generated through uranium. Which uranium is produced from Niger. Niger total power production annually is less than 500 kilowatts per year.
Yes.
Even Uganda, we consider ourselves a low-income country, developing country, the way these Western people describe us. Uganda produces 5.5 billion kilowatts of power. When we're talking about Niger, that contributes 20% of power generated in France. Because you see, when we're talking of 20%, that goes to over 50 billion kilowatts of power generated from uranium from France, rather from Niger. But Niger does not produce even 0.5% of power generated in France. In fact, as we talk now, Niger, because Niger imports over 700,000 kilowatts from Nigeria. And because of now what is happening now, even Nigeria is saying, we block it, you're not going to access our power. So since Niger was colonized by France in 1922, Niger has not been able to even create one nuclear energy system to generate power for its own people. How do you then explain to me that for the years the French have occupied Niger, more than 100 years of colonialism, now, even after removing the years before it formally became a colony of France, because I'll tell you that even before France became now the colonizers, or before Niger became a colony of France, already France was an occupation of that country. If you can remember from the meeting that was organized by Otto von Bismarck, the one of German, which later came to be known as the Berlin Act of the Berlin Conference of 1985, when these European countries agreed to share us, say, you have given you there. You have given you, say, but you've not given me enough. You add me. They are distributing. You, African, your land. They sat in a meeting in Berlin. Senti, I won't pad it to add me. This is the pain people went through. And for West African, like us in, East Africa, they tried to resist. I'll give you an example of Burkina Faso. When they tried to resist, because initially France was not interested in colonies that were not at the border. When you notice, many of their initial colonies, especially those before 1990s, were at the border. But later, of course, after the Berlin Conference of 1885, now they started coming inside. That's why you see countries like Gabon, they colonized them in 1885 after the Berlin Conference. Yes.
Debate nungi nayo luzungu lungi nafu twagala kugobera batamanyi nnyo luzungu so tujja kubanga
okay, we can mix. So chengezako kunywe nti gwe you, a young person, you listening to me, they sat in Berlin and shared you and said that land now is called Kenya. That land is called Tanzania. It's ours. The Tanzania is for German. Uganda, the British colony now, Uganda and Kenya, they are ours, and Rwanda is for Belgium. And they said Gabon is for France, and they said Niger and Burkina Faso and Guinea, they are for France. That's how they shared you. Do you know what is very painful? I was trying to tell you that even when France produces that much energy from uranium produced in Niger, the Niger people remain the poorest. One of the poor, because they are the poorest in the whole world, the seventh poorest, but they are number 186 poorest country, despite the fact that they are the seventh producer of uranium in the whole world. You who is listening to me, you may not know what uranium means, but uranium runs in nuclear plants that facilitate the production of power, nuclear power. So in other words, without this uranium, the nuclear power cannot
stand.
So in other words, if France did not have the uranium, they will not produce power. But Niger, where that uranium is exploited from, now that we are getting to the extent of many of these uranium mines are getting, even the uranium itself is getting done, Niger or Nigerian people do not benefit from this uranium.
Naye kati omuntu weyebuuliza for all along why has it taken us too long to act and to react?
Kakati, you said I keep mixing. You who is listening to me, you, especially you, the young people. These old people, these ones, the Mr. Museveni, the Tshisekedis of Congo, the Kagames of Rwanda, they had a generation job, which either they did or they didn't do. Okay? Gwe ampuliriza bano bamwami Museveni or President Museveni you're seeing here today had to travel to Frelimo, had to travel to South Africa, had to travel to Zimbabwe to fight colonialism. Gwe okujjako kubeera ku simu yo okulaba TikTok. What is your contribution to making sure that this generation or the generation that will come after you will live a better life? I am telling you, the Democratic Republic of Congo is the biggest supplier of cobalt, contributing 63% of the world is cobalt. Do you know what cobalt is used for? To make these batteries rechargeable. Now you see we moving towards electric cars. The biggest component of rechargeable batteries is from cobalt. These engines for fast-moving machines like planes, army helicopters, they are made. None of those factories is in Congo. None of the Congolese people now that are dying every day in these Congo forests benefit from this cobalt. Every day we are traded as the poorest continent, but the richest, the wealthiest continent. Every day. And all these problems are blamed on us, the African people. But where are our resources going? Where are they going? Have you asked that question to yourself? Do you know, Mr. Moderator, that the power or electricity sector in France employs more than 13 million people? But 80% of the people of Niger are below the poverty line. For you to give you a clear context of what poverty line means, that people on average live below $2. $2 roughly, that is 6,000. So it means that on average, because you see when you're talking of average, you have the Sudeels, or Inaba Sudil, or Inaba President Museveni, or Inaba Moderator, people with money. So they equate that to you. In fact, when you're talking of the $2, you may not even be in the equation. So 80% of that population lives below poverty line. But we're talking of a country that contributes to the 7th highest producer of uranium. Of course, following countries like Kazakhstan. But I'm trying to show you how exploitative these countries have been to. I want to give you a clear context. You may not understand what I am talking about. Between the month of January and March, more than 450 of young people from West Africa and Africa died trying to cross through Mediterranean, going to Europe. Do you know that they are trying to run to where their minerals are taken and they are blocked? Do you know they are using canoes, small canoes, to move through big, large water bodies? You may not understand what I am talking about, that even when they reach these countries, they are put in camps. Camps, do you know what I mean? Camps. And they are fenced as prisoners, but they are trying to move because their resources were moved from their countries. Let me give you a clear context. They said you cannot even stay anymore in our camps because we want to use these camps, so we're going to throw you back to Africa, to Rwanda, because you are unwanted. You young person listening to me, do you know, you a Kenyan, why you don't need a visa to enter Uganda? Do you know, you South African, why you don't need a visa to enter Uganda? Do you know why you need a visa to enter France or the US? Go and check on the countries that don't need visas to enter UK. Do you know why you need a visa to enter a country? Do you understand? Do you know why you don't need to ask for permission to enter your home? Do you know why when you want to go to your village, to your mother, to your father, you don't need a visa? Because you're one of their own. You a Kenyan, a Chikuyu, who thinks you need to go and kill a Masai, you a Musoga who wants to stop, or a Mugisu who wants to stop people from Kenya to enter Uganda, you, the Niger who has, rather the Nigerian who has closed your border to the people of Niger
from crossing.
Do you know why you don't need a visa to enter Niger? Because they know you're one of their own. I want moderator or whoever is listening, or whoever is managing this program to record this for me. Do you know why you, the Angola people, don't need visa to enter South Africa? Do you know? Do you know, you, the South African, why you need the visa to enter America? Because they need to see, they want to know whether you're worthy.
Who is this one coming? Are you worth our status?
They know you're not one of their own, but that is despite the fact that they've exploited all your minerals. I was telling people something funny. We've just had a coup in Gabon, and some of the things are very painful, and sometimes I speak about them painfully. Do you know in Gabon, Gabon's biggest export is cobalt. Gabon exports petroleum. When we're talking about petroleum, people may not understand petroleum. Petroleum is not petrol. Petroleum is what is used to make fuel for jets. Petroleum is used to make the fuel. You who's driving a car. Petroleum is used to make paraffin. Paraffin, you, my grandmother, my mother, in my village in Bende, in Chegegwa, that fuel you're using is from petroleum. Petroleum is used to make diesel. Okay? Petroleum that is sold by Gabon, and 50% of this goes to the US, and quite a similar number goes to France, is crude petroleum, not refined. Bamujja mu ttaka, no tewali kusengeja, bamujja mu ttaka ne bamutwala And in our next part, I'm going to explain to you how dangerous that is as well. That means if this petroleum was refined in Gabon, it means petrol would be produced in
Gabon.
Diesel will be produced in Gabon.
Jet
will be produced in Gabon.
Paraffin.
But even more to that, the people of Gabon will be employed to produce. Why is it that France and the US are not refining this fuel from Uganda, from Gabon, from Congo, from Nigeria, and they buy fuel from these countries? They buy petrol, they buy diesel, they buy paraffin from these countries. Why? Because they know if it's processed from here, you'll be employed. I can tell you, I told you, 13 million French people are employed in the power, the electricity
industry.
And we're talking of directly employed. Gabon population is less than 6 million. So even if we had said, let the French employ Gabon people, all of them will be employed, and more than 7 million other French people will be employed. Yes. So this is what we're talking about. What has caused coups in these countries?
Okay, let's pause there. We get a short break, then we come back. We analyze what went wrong.
Before you take me, every time I want to go, I want to ask you, the young person who is demonstrating on the road in Niger, in South Africa, in Angola, how have you contributed to fighting imperialism in your country? Thank you, moderator.
All right. We are with Counsel Adolf, and we are tackling the coups in Africa, more so in West Africa, how it's impacting the continent, the globe, and what should be done, more so you, the young person, you, the youth, you who is being told to demonstrate on the streets. What else can you do? What can we as a generation do so that we overcome neocolonialism and all acts of our colonial masters and their influence? When we come back, we shall get right from there. I'm Mukose Arnold Anthony. This is Mighty Drive. Good morning.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
But at the church,
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
kulekayo nnyo mu kuwumulamu okutonotono. Nze Mukose Arnold Anthony, nkyalina n'amateeka era omunoonyereza omukulu Adolf, nga tutunuulira ensonga ez'enjawulo, naye nga ku mulundi guno tutunuulidde nnyo ensonga z'okuwamba gavumenti oba okuvuunika gavumenti mu mawanga ga Africa, naddala obugwanjuba bwa Africa. Bwe tuwunzikidde abadde atulaga engeri gye batubbyemu oba gye babbye Africa, engeri gye batugabanamu, engeri gye batunyagako ebyaffe. Niko kubanga kati mu nsi yaffe twafuuka ababunzibunzi nga tusabiriza, ate tusabiriza abatubba nga batubba byaffe, naye ate tuwunzika tubasabiriza. Era wetuwunzikidde nga tuli ku ensobi twakyamirawa obuzibu bwava ku kiki kirina okukolebwa, era lwaki tuluddewo nnyo osobola okulaba nga twerwanako, okulaba nga oba oliawo tufuna obwetwaze obwetengeredde, because tukireminga nti twafuna obwetwaze nti we are independent, but indeed we are not, we are dependent. Nti mu bigambo tulinga abetengeredde, naye bw'otunuulira ebyenfuna, bw'otunuulira engeri gye tukwatamu ebyokwenda byaffe, engeri gye tutunuuliramu oba gye tukwatamu embeera y'ebyobutale n'ebyamaguzi byaffe, yonna eraga nti tetwetengeredde, era nga tumala kufuna ddoboozi oba abatufuga abatwala mu matwale kye batugamba kwe tugoberera. So Counsel, wetuwunzikidde nga twagala tunuulira obuzibu buno bwonna tumaze okulaba nti oba oliawo batubbye ekimala, naye nga tuluddewo nnyo okwerwanako, nga tuluddewo nnyo okuddamu okulwanira obwetwaze bwaffe, obuzibu buvuddewa?
Well, again, I spent a lot of my times, early times of political, activism, in blaming the African societies, the African presidents. But also, you who is listening to us, you must understand that we fighting an entrenched organization or governments. These are strong, wealthy governments. Many times, for some of the leaders that came up to say, well, enough is enough, many of them, as we speak to you now, they are former presidents. If you remember, I think the most recent was the case of Muammar Gaddafi, the president of Libya, who was a strong advocate of African unity, of a strong African Union, of African countries having at least a membership on the Security Council. I'm seeing today we're struggling to have a member on the G20. Because what we're talking about here now, members who may not understand, these are the powerhouses of this world. These are global powerhouses. They make decisions. The other day I was watching President Museveni telling you that Africa, as African Union, we had made a decision that let there not be an attack on Libya, on President, the late now Muammar Gaddafi, and the African Union had made a decision to pick 6 of fellow leaders, we're talking of presidents, fellow leaders, to go to Libya and talk to President Muammar Gaddafi. But on their way, they received a call from NATO saying, please
none of you should step.
And you see, I don't know whether people understand the context. We are talking on African soil, for the African people. Someone says, don't do it.
Don't dare.
And they said, you are independent. You who is listening to me, they said, you independent. They said, don't cross.
Step.
They are talking, you see, you may think they are talking to local council chairmen or to presidents of your countries. You said you're independent. You, South Africa, you, Niger. Because we are now boxes, we feel we're too strong and you find a South African saying, you Zimbabwean don't enter because I want, to protect my boundaries, because you... But we're saying they told your presidents, don't step. You who is saying you're independent. Our forefathers lost lives, lost relatives, lost wealth to fight for this seeming independence you're seeing now. Your question is, what is your job? Me, I am here on TV with my brother speaking to you. This may be our job. Today, you know what is painful? Our young brothers now have to declare themselves as homosexuals, and they have to dress like women for them to be accepted in these countries. You who said you're independent. It is our job.
In other words, they can't accept you the way you are.
I am telling you that you must conform to what they want you to be.
For them to accept you.
For them to accept you. And I was, I was saying these very words in another space, and someone is saying, okay, so you are against the West. You're fighting the West. We are not fighting the West. In fact, like President Museveni always say, we are not anti-West.
Anti-West, rather.
No, me, I am anti-gay. That I'll be honest with you. We are not anti-West. But we're not going to be pro anyone. We are pro-Africa. We don't have to be pro anyone or anti anyone. We are pro-Africa. I can tell you we're going to deal with anyone who deals with Africa the way you deal with us is the way we shall
deal with you.
If you love Africa,
we shall love you.
We shall love you. If you don't, I can tell you some of us will even afford to stay here even when we are denied visas. We shall stay here. If that is the cost we're going to pay to make sure that Africa can be also invited for G20, not as a visitor, can sit on the Security Council. We are a population of 1.3 billion people. How do you explain that we don't sit on any of these power, decision-making, organizations? No, we don't. We don't. How do you explain that? The Congolese people, some of these things are painful. Gabon is a society of less than 6 million people. Even if the African mining, the company that mines much of the minerals in Gabon, even if they had said, well, let us contribute only 6%, because let's imagine, out of the 6 million people, 4 million people are under the age of 18. These are, presumption, because it's not correct. They are less than that. On average, you need less than $15 or roughly $15 to take a student in a public school to school. On average, you say, okay, for the 4 million people times $15, that does not make even 6% of the profits, the revenue of African mining. But I can tell you the levels of illiteracy in Gabon, they are appalling. They are appalling and very painful. Do you know, in a country like Niger, out of every 9 women who enter a hospital to give birth, 1 of them will die. Do you understand what we're talking about? Every time your mother, your wife, goes to give birth in a hospital, every time you see 9 enter a hospital, you know 1 of them? They have the highest mortality rate, kids dying before they can independently live in the whole world. You who is condemning a coup in Gabon. You see, in a country like Gabon, I told you what they export: petroleum, crude. They export wood. I think they are one of the countries with the biggest forest cover in the world. Export wood. They export cobalt. Do you know what Gabon imports? And you see, Gabon, unlike other African countries, they don't trade more with their neighbors. With Cameroon, with Sao Tome, with the Principe, the other side of the sea. No, they don't. They trade more, like I told you, with France and the US.
Colonial masters.
Do you know what Gabon imports from these countries?
No.
Their biggest import is chicken. I don't know whether you understand what I mean. Not chicks to rear. Chicken for eating. Food. Chicken.
Processed.
Do you understand what you... Chicken, this... That's what Gabon imports from France and the US. Do you know another thing they import? Medicines. Packaged medicines. You who is listening to me, they know if they give you that chicken, first of all, it's a special package for Africa, for you, the Gabon person listening to me. Special package for you. You don't know how this chicken was reared. Most likely there are many, these are 2 weeks, 3 weeks chicken. Okay? Number 3, it has been refrigerated from the time it flies from Paris, from Washington to you listening to me. It is not the chicken that was packed. Because definitely things that are refrigerated for long, they cannot be the same as me who runs after my chicken and slaughter and eat. Definitely no. So definitely they know you will get sick. You.
It has a lot of preservatives and chemicals.
They know you will get sick. So they know again you're going to become their client for
life.
Their medicine. How much of that medicine you Ugandan, you in Kasese, you in Kabale, you in Karen in Kenya, you Kikuyu in Kenya, you Zulu in South Africa, you Tuareg in Niger, you Nigerian, how much of the medicine you use in your country do you produce? Do you need a franchise for you Ugandan to approve your Covidex? You need rather permission for what is it called? World Health Organization for you to trade your Covidex. Do you know they denied you franchise to produce the virus? And they said they are going to treat their own people first. Do you know? So do you understand the hierarchy in terms of priority? You are. So
in other words, for you saying that coups in West Africa are fine for as long as
young people have now discovered their generation job, their duty. And they have started standing up. You've not had coups where people come on streets and celebrate. Do you know in Niger, people came and said, we are going to fight to make sure that we protect these juntas. Before, people always will fear
joining the coup leaders.
Now they are saying, we are going to stand with you. In fact, they're saying we're going to join the army to make sure that we defend our motherland. Because now people have understood and accept their generational job, and they are going to fight for their minerals, they are going to fight their land. What is very painful, let me tell you. Today there is a war between Russia. I want you to listen to me, between Russia and Ukraine. But you know they are saying that Africa, we are the biggest victims because food cannot cross through Odessa, through Crimea, through that Black Sea, to come to Turkey, to come. Go and look for this information. Read how much of that food comes to Africa. How many times has World Food Program, I come from Muvende, around Mubende, Chegegwa. Now in Chegegwa we have a refugee
camp.
You, the farmer of maize in Mubende, maize in Chibali, in Kagadi, in Mitiana, in Kakumiro, in Fort Potro. How many times have you had World Food Program running a campaign or advertising bids for you to come and bid to supply food to these refugee camps in Chegegwa? How many times? Don't you have maize? Don't you have your maize rotting in stores?
The bins.
And the refugee camps are not even 50 kilometers away from where you are, and they have to import food from Ukraine. Do you know even when Russia proposed to give us free food, they said, no, you will not take that food. How many times have they thought of buying this food from Russia? How many times have you sold sugar from Kakira, from Madivan to these countries? How many times have you seen World Food Program coming to Kakira in Jinja to buy sugar for those refugees? How many times? How many times you, the grower of maize, have you sold maize to Bangladesh to give people in the Rohingya people? How many times? Don't you have produce? Do you know more than 50% of the arable land in the world is in Africa? How many times have you seen the Western people coming to Africa to invest in Africa to make sure that we can produce more, we can have enough food, to make sure that in case of cases, for example, do you know Israel was a desert?
Yeah.
Now Israel is one of the biggest producers of food. You who has the arable land we mean land that can produce food naturally. You who is listening to me in Ankole, in Chigezi, you is listening from me from Greater Masaka. How many times do you apply fertilizers in your garden to produce coffee? How many times? Do you know they need fertilizers in Odessa, in Ukraine, in France, in Russia to produce food? Do you know you who doesn't need even fertilizer, they will not buy your food? Is it honest that these guys wish us the best? I want you to sit down in your sitting room, whether you listen to this program as recorded or live, ask yourself these questions. Is it true that your president is the problem? I'm still giving you. Gabon imports medicines. The other third, Gabon imports rice. Not from you who is the producer of rice, you people from the East.
Not from Uganda, not from East Africa, not from any country from Africa.
No. And if you take it to Gabon right now, they will block you. I can tell you cannot sell, you person from Mayuge, you person from Iganga, you person from Namutumba producing rice, you person from Mutukula, you person from Tanzania producing some of the best rice in Africa. You will take it to Gabon, they will block you. But they will accept rice from
USA.
Do you know how far is it from the US, from France to get to Gabon? So they import rice. Do you know the other item? And I'm giving them to you in terms of hierarchy. Cars. And lavish cars. Not truck, cars. Do you think Gabon has even a simple factory, even an assembling plant for cars? They don't. They import and very expensive cars. But you know who buys those cars? In fact, I'm saying buying, but most of them it's not even buying. They give the people in power. The others are, of course, cars, tractors that ferry wood. Gabon exports wood, not timber. People may misunderstand what I'm talking about. Wood from the forest.
From the forest.
Loads on a truck.
The logs.
Drives to the sea. Puts on those ships. They drive. Wood.
They export logs.
Now, you, the Gabonese who is listening to me, this is what it means. That if that wood was processed in your country, first of all, the person cutting will be employed. The timberman, the factory where this wood is going to be processed to become timber, is going to be
employed.
And the power that will generate or that will run the machines that will cut this timber will be from
your area.
That means the person who is producing electricity has a market. But also, he himself, because he has a market, he will be able to employ people, and therefore people will earn income. Let's go back to timber. When timber is produced in Gabon, Gabon will make furniture, chairs like this. We'll make doors. We'll make the beds for you. So it means the person selling the timber will earn a living. But also, your money in terms of circulation will remain in your economy. It means that you're not going to sell timber abroad, okay? Because then you're losing. You're not going to sell wood because then you're losing money. But because even the person who has bought the timber is a Gabonese, your money remains in Gabon. Now, Gabon also imports ships. This is again for transporting wood. Have you understood what we're talking about? What Gabon imports versus what Gabon exports. Gabon imports rice, Gabon imports medicine, Gabon imports chicken. Gabon exports petroleum, but Gabon buys petrol. Do you understand the context? Gabon exports timber, but Gabon imports tables. Gabon exports or has sold out its land, but Gabon imports rice. Gabon cannot produce chicken for its own people. They have to import from France. Do you understand how painful that can be? You see, these countries I'm talking about, like I said, Gabon is one of the poorest countries in the world, with one of the lowest GDP per capita in the world. But Gabon produces or has one of the biggest mines for cobalt, for petroleums in the world. In fact, Gabon is a member of OPEC. The world is petroleum producing countries. But Gabon has one of the poorest economies. That is not the case for Saudi Arabia. That is not the case for Iran. That is not the case for Russia. It is not the case for any of those countries, but it is the case for Gabon. We are always traded as the poorest countries. But what went wrong? I can tell you, France has been occupying Niger since 1922. Niger remains one of the poorest countries. France has been occupying over, I think, more than 15,000 troops, French troops, are in Niger. Quite a similar number of US troops are in Niger. But still, France, rather Niger, is terrorized by these small terrorists. So, what explains that? I want you, the young person, especially, as well as, on TikTok, on Twitter, what has been your job to making sure that this continent is free from imperialism?
Yes, Counsel. Thank you. You can send your comments. I can see some comments here, but we shall come back to the comments. Counsel, when you talk about the inevitability of these coups, Don't we have other alternatives apart from coups that we can use to change leadership? Because it's as if the coups are already versions of changing leadership. Can't we have alternatives? And why have we decided to go in for coups that maybe one would think that those were days of 1960s, 70s, and now we are in 2003s. We are another century. What alternative do you think, according to your opinion and your research, can be used more so to cut off our chains from the colonies?
Well, thank you. Definitely, coups should not be the most desirable way of changing power. The last time I was here, well, in a different context, I said the more you stifle spaces of changing leadership, you leave no room for what ideally should have been the most desirable to the undesirables now. Like you may have known, the last time I came here as an electoral process or elections consultant, and I had invested a lot of my energies in understanding, rather in campaigning, activism, electoral democracy. I'd invested a lot of my energies there. For this other time, I decided to understand whether African problem, honestly, is democracy. I'll be honest with you, all the spaces that we admire now, they do not become what they are because of democracy. I want you to take off time to read a book called Kicking Off the Ladder. Is it true, you who is listening to me, that France became wealthy because of democracy? You who has read history, who knows the times of the Louis XVI and the like. You who has read Italy, the likes of Mussolini's history. You who has read Germany, the times of Hitler, Gasoline, Hayes. Are you sure they are rich because of democracy? Do you know that even Africa, before the 1980s, we had our own administrative systems?
Yeah.
Do you know there are countries that, how many times have you had Britain or UK voting for the Queen or the King? Are they unstable?
You go to Saudi Arabia.
Is Uganda a better place than Saudi Arabia? Is Uganda a better place than Kuwait? How many times have you lined up to vote for, you the Catholic people? How many times have you lined up to vote for a pope? Don't you follow every pope that comes in? Is a Catholic or the Catholic institution not a strong institution? Is democracy the African problem? Especially the Western democracy. You see, there are questions I always ask myself, especially after the 2021 elections. Who has been financing elections, especially us who have been in activism? Who has been supporting our elections? And what has been the motive? Now, there are things I may not disclose here, but just to give you a glimpse, someone who gives you money is very clear on what the expectations on you are. They are not giving you money because they love you. They are it's a bargain. They know exactly what they expect from you. And that explains the very reason why when you say no to homosexuality, Because ideally, when you're talking about democracy, should be the voice of the majority. Unanimously, your National Assembly said no to homosexuality. We said we don't want
homosexuality.
They said you're not going to. What I want you to sit somewhere and think about these things rationally. They said, because you don't stand for homosexuality, Uganda, you're not going to. Do you know homosexuality is not accepted in Saudi Arabia? Do you know every American president struggles to go to visit Saudi Arabia? Do you understand? You listening to me. Do you know that World IMF and World Bank, they're not going to give you money because you said no?
And they're pleading to Qatar to give them money. Who said no also?
You listening to me. Do you know for your brothers and sisters to be accepted to travel to the US, they have either to say they are tortured, because me, I have my friend who say Museveni is about to kill me, but no one has even ever stepped at his door. I saw my friend, this young man called Kapalaga, the one who used to work with the Simba. He said, if you don't accept me here, Museveni is going to finish me. But he doesn't even, I doubt even Museveni knew about this gentleman. Not even any security. Kapalaga was not a security threat to anybody. But because the young man wanted to be accepted, he had to sell off his country. Do you know your brothers and sisters, your brothers, big, very handsome, strong men, are there putting on, what do you call these tight things for ladies? Leggings. And put on tops, stopping in stomachs here. They are putting on dresses, putting on skirts, because they want to appear as gays, for them to be accepted in these countries. They have to sell their souls. Are you honestly honest? You, the French person, you, the American person, you listening to us, are you honest? You wish good for this continent. Like I said, you know, when we're running these campaigns, we are not anti-anyone. And to be honest with you, we have very, very close friends in the US, in France, in all these countries. The other day I was seeing Madame, she's called Mary, the Prime Minister of Italy, saying, please, Macron, stop exploiting Africa. No African person hates either European or nobody. 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 But we are against policies that are anti-Africa. We are saying, if you want to invest in Africa, let me give you an example. If you want to invest in Africa, we have oil. Let me give you a clear example of oil in Uganda, oil in Busia, oil in Western Uganda, in the parts of Bunyoro. Please come and build a refinery here. Because when you do, you see what is happening in Bunyoro, see the kind of roads we have now. Go and see Bunyoro has a regional referral hospital. Go and see how many people wake up every day, are driven to go to Bulisa to work. Do you know how many people are going to get jobs because of the pipeline that is going to move from Bunyoro to go through Tanzania? Do you know how many people are going to be employed? Do you know how many people have been paid just to have that pipeline go through their land? Do you know how much money is saved? Do you know how much money Uganda will earn? That is also if Uganda is honest to itself. How many people are going to earn money because petroleum is processed, refined from here? Like I said, because petrol is going to be produced here, because diesel is going to be produced here, because paraffin is going to be produced here, mattresses are going to be made from here, because these things are going to be, do you know how many people are going to be employed? That is what we're asking for. When you come to Uganda and say, I want to invest in the gold industry, can you please build a refinery in Uganda? How many people are going to be employed as a result? The other day, President Museveni was talking about the coffee industry. How much of the coffee industry money comes to the coffee producers? You who goes to your garden and harvest that coffee the way it is, and go to the market and sell it the way it is, do you know how much money you lose? Me, the other day, my wife was used to buying a Nescafe. Nescafe becomes Nescafe. So the other day I said, today I'm going to go to the market to buy these things myself. I looked for coffee with made in Uganda. How many times you Ugandan, you Kenyan, you South African, how many times do you enter a bar and you say, I want a bell because it's made in Uganda? The other day I was in Karen in Kenya, and they are now special beers, and I was looking for Uganda what product. Is not even Uganda. I was looking for what is made in Kenya. How many times you Nigerian do you go to a shop and you say, I want a car assembled? Yes. How many times before you say you're fighting your government because it's a poor government? How many times? Because that is the only way we're going to fight imperialism. Our problems are different from the problems of our forefathers. They did their job, and almost in the 1960s, except of course with France, rather from South Africa and a bit of Zimbabwe, by the 60s, almost all African countries, at least they were free from colonialism.
All right.
Your job is to fight imperialism.
All right. We have like quarter to the top of the show. That's 15 minutes. We have Ethan Mwine. This is our interviewer from Ankara, Turkey. He asks, are there common themes or patterns in the reasons behind coups in Africa, such as political corruption, ethnic tensions, or resource conflicts?
Okay. Well, again, we're getting back to the same issue. You see, corruption, the corruption that you see is a problem to Africa is not the corruption of Adolf as bribed my host here with 20,000 to... You see, this is not the corruption we're talking about. If you want to understand what we're dealing with, I've just given you a clear example of what happens in Gabon. You see, if today China said, we are not going to allow America-made chips, these chips you put in phones, in computers, if America can even go to war. You know why America now has issues with China over Taiwan? Simple things. Trade. The African talking here. Can you pack your matoke? Because, I mean, US people would love to eat, for example, matoke. Can you pack matoke and go and sell it in the French market, for example? You can't. How many things do you Ugandan stop from coming? How many wines can Uganda stop, even when you don't know where they're made from?
We're dumping point.
Do you understand? How many times you a Ugandan, before you even talk about corruption, do you go to a shop and say, I want a Ugandan-made shark? Don't you say, well, it's expensive. But how many times do you know why it's expensive? Because you don't buy from there. And that means the cost of production or producing those shirts becomes expensive. How many times do you walk to the shop and say, I want to buy a shoe made in Uganda? How many times? How many times do you go to a market and say, today I'm not going to take a beer manufactured in France, I'm going to take a beer. Do you know some of you take even these beers, not because they are nice, not because they are better than those made in Uganda, but because they are from... How many times do you go to a market and say, I'm not going to buy a suit made in Italy? I want to buy my suit made.
Locally made.
How many times? It is going to be our job. Me and this corruption and resources, rather corruption, the problem is you and your mindset. I have all the problems with coups in Africa. And you see, you can talk of resources. But you see, coups of resources were coups of those days. The coups of Burundi, maybe the coups of some bit of Congo, this DRC. But the coups of now, they are coups of generation duty. The young people are starting to discover their job as a generation. And I want to reinsist, this movement, or our movement, is not a movement against the Western people. These are advocates against the Western exploitation. And I can tell you, we are going to put an end to that exploitation. You see, you're talking of resources. I've just given a clear example. When we're talking of a country like Congo, this DRC, which is just next to us here, the UN mission in Congo, they've been there for more than 50 years. But Congo still remains with the highest number of these gun militants. So is it true? And you see, when Congo tried now to involve Uganda to fight and resist these imperialistic tendencies in this region, then there was a court case against Uganda and said, Uganda, you have to pay this amount of money, and they will make sure that they put a figure that they know will be very difficult to you. And so Uganda was paraded as thugs, as robbers in this country. But I can tell you, UN peacekeeping mission has been in this country for hundreds of years. And the reason why these people are not developing is because, you see, you cannot develop a society that is having all these security issues. So, but they've been there for hundreds of years. This country has been having these constant militants. Day in, day out, their people are dying. Same with Niamey. Same with the Freetown in Sierra Leone. And I was joking with my friend. Do you know why Sierra Leone, their capital city, is called Freetown? Very painful stories. And Africans have not forgotten these things. Do you know when the British ended colonialism, when their parliament, I think it was around 1870, when they outlawed slavery. So a number of our fathers and great grandfathers had been dumped in many of these colonies to go and work as slaves. So they had to find somewhere to dump them. So they went and agreed now with the with the British company that was owning now Sierra Leone, and said, please give us part of this space. We come and dump. So many of Sierra Leone people are not native people of Sierra Leone. These are slaves that were put together and said, let's dump them in what then they termed as Freetown. But there was nothing free about that town. And that's why now you see many coups every day. Because it was not an entrenched native society of people of Sierra Leone. These were slaves put together and abandoned and dumped in this town. It is exactly the same thing that these people are trying to do with the people they are now dumping in Rwanda.
Okay, not sound primitive, but I would rather support a bloodless coup than the so-called people's portrayed struggles like that of Museveni in Luwero that saw over 800,000 lives lost. There are some coups that have brought real change than his so-called elections have done. A clear example is Thomas Sankara. Then he goes further and says, You have been in the NGO world like Sedu, still the NGO script is for the same colonialists. How can Africa stand without such donor funds? As we conclude.
You see, you Africans, the truth is it will be a very painful pill to take, but it's worthy taking it. I said the price of your forefathers was life. They lost their land, they lost their freedom, they lost their... This, you can wake up and go to a bar and drink and come back in the morning. The price of your forefathers was more painful. It is going to be a deliberate mind shift in especially the young people, in an understanding that we need a leveled ground of negotiation every time we go to discuss, especially with the West. It is very painful that Africa, with all the wealth we have, we are treated as the poorest country, poorest continent in the world. It is very painful, moderator, that when you go in those countries and you to ask, especially the young people, whether they know Africa, in fact, they consider us to be a country, not a continent.
Yeah, true.
Do you know why when Russia, when China, when the US, when UK wants to invite Africa, they invite you as a group? They see, they feel if they take one of you, you cannot articulate issues to their expectations. So they bundle you up and consider you as a country. It is going to take me and you accepting very painful pills,
bitter pills,
which may include stopping you from going to or denying visas
and entry.
Some of them will say they are not going to give you aid. Some of them are going to say, if you don't accept, we're going to overthrow your country. It is going to be a painful chill. Rather, you're going to take to make sure that you protect the sovereignty of your country. I've just given a simple example. Go and look at how many countries have free visas to enter Britain. Look for African countries there. Look for them. You, South African, fighting a person from Swaziland from entering your country. You need a visa to enter Belgium. You don't need a visa to come to Uganda because we know you're one of our own. You, the Nigerian person who has blocked Niger people from entering your country, you know you need a visa to enter the US, to enter Belgium, to enter Europe. You. The only person you have who is your own is the Niger person. You speak almost the same language. You do everything the same way. Do you know that 14 out of the countries that were formerly colonized by France use franc
as their currency?
But France doesn't use that same money. Do you know what we're talking about? Do you know that those 14 countries need to pay money every year to France for them to keep their money, to allow them to use the francs? They need to pay France. Do you know that France doesn't use that very money? France is using euro. Do you understand what we're talking about? I want to speak to you, the young people. It's a generation duty to make sure that Africa is independent again. What our forefathers did to us is to make sure that we can have African administrative or Africans being in administrative positions. It is our duty that Africa is independent in terms of the economy. Africa has an independent army. Africa has an independent government. Africa is independent again. It's unfortunate that today, even African Union, which should ideally be our own, is funded by the West. I want to implore each and every one of us, especially the young people, make sure you stand and raise up. For anyone who wants to cooperate and associate with Africa must be willing to respect not just the rights, the human rights that we keep trading of electoral processes, but the economic rights, the humane rights of the African people. We should as equally be free to enter France, to enter Germany, to enter Belgium, to enter Sweden, to enter, as they are free to enter Africa. They should not be looking at exploiting and brain draining Africa. They keep picking our best doctors, our best engineers. They should be willing to come and settle in Africa. How many of the French people have homes in Niger now that they are struggling to stay in Niger? Does that French ambassador who is insisting he wants to stay in Niger, does he have a home in Niger? Does the 1,000, 5,000, rather 5,000 French troops and the Americans who are stationed in Niger, do they have homes in France? I am concluding. Do they have homes in France? You who is listening to me, how many French, how many British people have homes in the forests of Congo? How many? They come because they come to pick minerals and leave. It is only you and me that know that this is our home. Indeed. You, an African, you're never going to have a home, even if you run from Uganda, from Kenya, from Swaziland, from Niger, from Nigeria, from Burkina Faso, from Gabon. Even if you run, you will come back to Africa because it's only here that you'll be considered a true citizen. I want us to do whatever is within our means. Even sometimes that is considered not to be within our means, to make sure that we make Africa a better place to live in. We don't want these people to visit Africa again, to visit monkeys, to visit and see how poor people live. We want them to visit Africa again, to see the fastest train in the world, the most beautiful car manufactured in Africa, to see the beautiful skyscrapers in the world, not to visit monkeys and how poor we are. We don't want aid. We want to trade with you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Counsel Adolf, for sharing with us your experience and your research. And indeed, we've tapped into your knowledge. I think it's high time Africa changed the way we work, the way we think, the way we cooperate with other worlds, because I believe it's not too late and we are not too far from you.
Moderator, I wanted to pass something very small. When I said we don't, it's true, we don't want aid. We want to equally trade with you. We want to be as free to move our beans, our maize, our minerals, processed minerals, to the French, to the German, to the Swedish market, as you are free to bring your cars, your clothes, your alcohol to Africa. We want equal standings when we want to trade. We want to bargain for loans in the IMF, in the World Bank, equally as you, the Americans, the French, the Swedish, the Israelites. We want to trade and negotiate with you equally. Thank you.
All right. We need and we want a balanced scale for all continents. I've been Mukose Arnold Anthony on behalf of the team, those in the control room, and it has been so wonderful and educative and informative having shared with you your experience and your research. Till we meet tomorrow in the morning, we shall be having Nakuya Aida sharing, she calls herself small body, big brain. Shall be sharing her experience and her expertise. It has been a good morning. I wish you all the best. May good Lord bless you and have a wonderful day.